I had no reason to be at that party. But there I was, standing in the corner of a room full of strangers, a drink in my hand that I wasn't sure I'd ever sip. I hadn't planned on coming. It wasn't a celebration for me. But when I received the invitation, I saw it as my chance to finally face her Emily. I wasn't ready to forgive, but I was ready to find some kind of closure. The moment I stepped in, I could feel the weight of the room, like the air was thick with something I couldn't name, a sense of dread. Or maybe it was the way I kept seeing her. So even before I saw her, I knew she was here. It was the way people shifted around, their whispers barely loud enough to catch. They were talking about her, and I wasn't stupid. I knew what was coming. I pushed through the crowd and found my place in the corner, away from the noise, away from them. I didn't want to see her. I didn't want to hear her voice. But I needed to know if I could survive seeing her again. If I could take back control, I'd been a fool for too long. Then I saw her. Emily, my ex-girlfriend. The woman who had broken me. The woman who'd left me in pieces even though she promised she never would. She looked different, more polished, more ... perfect. And there he was, Jake, standing right beside her. Her new boyfriend. I didn't even know where to start. The old hurt rushed back sharp and sudden, cutting through the alcohol haze in my head. She smiled at him, and my stomach twisted in knots. I could hear her laughter even above the loud music, her joy so genuine, so effortlessly bright. My hands tightened around the drink, my knuckles white. But I didn't move. I stayed where I was, watching them as if it were the only thing I could do. The betrayal from months ago seemed to stretch forward, like an invisible thread tying me to that moment when she'd walked away, leaving me behind. I had to force myself not to look at them. But Emily was everywhere. I could hear her voice in every laugh, every word spoken in her direction. She was so perfect with him. It was like I never even existed. Like our whole time together meant nothing. And then, like a cruel twist of fate, she turned and saw me. Her eyes flickered with recognition, but she didn't approach, not right away. She stood there with Jake, her arm wrapped around him, a little too tight, a little too possessive. They whispered something to each other, probably about me. The crowd seemed to part around them, as if they could all sense what was happening. The air was thick with tension, as if everyone was waiting for the next act of this little show. Then she walked towards me. I could feel my heart hammering in my chest, like it was trying to escape my rib cage, but I didn't let it show. I stood there, still, like I wasn't even breathing. She came closer, and for a second I thought maybe this was it. Maybe she was going to apologize. Maybe she'd admit how badly she'd messed up. Maybe she'd even tell me she still loved me. But no, she stopped just in front of me, her smile wide and almost mocking. "James," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "So nice to see you again." Jake was right behind her, standing just a little too close. I could feel his eyes on me, sizing me up, trying to gauge my reaction, but it wasn't him that bothered me, it was her. It's the one who had ripped my heart out and trampled on it. It's the one who hadn't even given me a second thought after leaving. And now here she was, acting like nothing had ever happened between us. Her eyes gleamed, a flash of something cold behind them, and I realized it wasn't just my past mistakes she was bringing up, it was hers. She had used me. She had taken everything I had, and now she was showing me just how far she had moved on. "You look ... different," she said, her words almost too sharp. "I didn't expect you to still be around." Her words stung, but I didn't let it show. I swallowed hard, forcing my voice to remain steady. "I'm still here, Emily. That's more than I can say for you." She flinched, just a little, but it was enough for me to know I had hit a nerve. For a second, I felt a surge of power. It's not much, but enough to keep me from breaking. I was done with her. Done with the lies, done with the betrayal. The more she stood there, the more I realized just how much I had changed. I wasn't the same guy who had begged her to stay. She turned to Jake then, as if to confirm her dominance. "Isn't it funny," she said, her voice louder, drawing attention, "how some people just don't know when to leave?" The words hung in the air like poison, but I didn't let it faze me. I was done. Done trying to get her back. Done trying to make her see me as anything other than what she'd left behind. Without a word, I turned and walked away. I didn't look back. The pain was still there, buried deep, but it didn't matter anymore. I wasn't going to let her control my life any longer. I had given her everything, and she had thrown it all away. Now it was my turn to walk away, my turn to regain control. And as I stepped out into the cold night air, I made a promise to myself. I wouldn't let her break me anymore. I slammed the door behind me, the sound echoing through the empty apartment. Los Angeles was still awake, but I couldn't feel it. The city's noise didn't touch me. Everything inside me was quiet, cold, distant. I kicked off my shoes and collapsed on the couch, the weight of the night still heavy in my chest. Emily's face kept flashing in my mind, her smile, her laugh, that damned look of triumph when she walked away with Jake. My blood boiled. Every word she'd said, every glance she'd thrown my way, twisted like a knife in my gut. Why the hell did she even bother showing up? Was it some kind of sick game to her? I buried my head in my hands, the anger morphing into something darker. Pain. I hated how easily she could still hurt me, even from miles away. I hated that I still cared. It made me feel weak, like I hadn't learned a damn thing. A knock on the door broke through my spiraling thoughts. I didn't even move at first, hoping whoever it was would go away. I didn't want to talk to anyone. But the knock came again, more persistent this time. "James, open up." Sophie's voice rang through the door. Sophie, of course. I should have known it would be her. She always knew when something was wrong, and I hated that she could read me so easily. I groaned, reluctantly getting up and unlocking the door. Sophie stood there, her eyes soft with concern. "I figured you'd be here," she said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. "You've been hiding long enough." I didn't respond, too tired to argue. Sophie looked around the apartment, her eyes scanning the mess. "Is this really how you want to live?" she asked, her voice quiet but pointed. I didn't answer. Sophie sighed and sat down on the armchair across from me. "You know, I get it. I know why you're pissed. Emily did you dirty, but this... This isn't you. You're better than this." I looked at her, my frustration boiling over. Better than what, Sophie? Sitting around and letting her get away with it? Letting her walk all over me? I loved her. I gave her everything, and she just turned her back on me like it was nothing. Sophie tilted her head, her gaze softening. "And you're still letting her win. Every time you let her control your thoughts, you're giving her that power. Don't you see that? She's living her life, probably without a second thought, and you're here, wasting yours." I didn't want to admit it, but she was right. I was letting Emily win. I was letting the past consume me, even though it wasn't fair to either of us. "I hate her," I muttered, the bitterness in my voice unmistakable. "I know you do," Sophie said gently. "But you need to ask yourself, do you really want to hold on to this hatred? Do you want to be that guy? The one who spends his life angry, bitter, and stuck in the past?" Stayed silent, the weight of her words sinking in. I didn't want to be that guy. I didn't want to keep carrying this anger around, but forgiving Emily? Letting go of all the pain she caused? It felt impossible. Sophie leaned forward, her voice becoming more urgent. "James, this isn't about her anymore. It's about you. You have a chance here to move on. Stop letting her decisions dictate how you live your life. But you've got to make that choice. No one else can do it for you." I clenched my fists, my mind racing. She was right. I couldn't keep hiding from this forever. I couldn't let Emily have this much power over me. But the thought of forgiving her, it made me feel like I was giving up on myself, like I was saying that everything she did was okay. "How do I let go?" I asked, the question barely escaping my lips. Sophie smiled, a soft, almost knowing smile. "You start by realizing that holding on to this anger isn't going to change anything. You don't need her to apologize or regret what she did for you to move on. You just have to decide that you're worth more than the pain she caused you." I wanted to argue, wanted to tell her it wasn't that simple, but deep down I knew she was right. I couldn't keep going like this, clinging to the past. Sophie stood up, walking over to me. She placed a hand on my shoulder, squeezing it gently. "You've got this, James. I believe in you. But you've got to take that first step. You've got to decide that you deserve better than this." I nodded, my throat tight. I didn't know if I was ready to forgive Emily. Hell, I wasn't even sure I could. But I knew one thing for certain. I couldn't keep living like this. Something had to change. "I'll try," I said, the words feeling foreign on my tongue. Sophie gave me a small, approving smile. That's all anyone can do. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like maybe, just maybe, I could start healing. I thought leaving Los Angeles would be enough. I thought getting away from everything Emily, Jake, the memories would somehow make it easier. But no matter how far I went, it seemed like the past was always right behind me, just a step away. So, when the work assignment in New York came up, I jumped at the chance. A fresh start. A distraction. At least that's what I told myself. The city was cold that night, and I couldn't decide if it was the air or my thoughts that made me shiver. I stepped into the hotel lobby, looking up at the sparkling lights that dotted the skyline. But even the city's bright glow couldn't erase the weight on my chest. I was here to work, to take back some control. But in truth, I was also running. Running from Emily, running from Jake, running from the pain. But fate has a way of catching up. I didn't expect to see him. Not here, not now. But there he was, standing by the bar, laughing with some of the other guests. Jake, the man who had taken Emily from me, who had so effortlessly stepped into the life I thought was mine. My jaw clenched at the sight of him, and for a moment I wondered if I should just leave, turn around and walk out of the room. But I didn't. I walked towards the bar, my mind a mess of conflicting thoughts. Why was I letting this affect me? Why was I still letting Emily and Jake control my emotions? Jake turned as I approached, his eyes lighting up with a grin. He was confident, maybe too much so. I hated that about him, that look on his face like he had everything figured out. Offered me his hand, too eager, too casual. James, right? Emily's ex? Didn't shake his hand. Instead, I narrowed my eyes at him. Jake, I said, my voice tight. He didn't seem to notice the tension in my tone. He leaned back against the bar, smiling. It's funny seeing you here. I didn't expect Emily's past to show up in New York, but hey, small world, right? Small world, my ass. I had to remind myself not to let him provoke me, not to give him the satisfaction of seeing me lose control. Yeah, I said, forcing a smile. Funny. He leaned in a little closer, lowering his voice. I've got to hand it to you, man. Emily really picked a good one. I mean, she's happy with me now, but you were a close second. His words stung. They hit harder than I cared to admit, but I didn't react. Not this time. I'd learned to keep my emotions in check, to protect myself from people like him. I wasn't going to let him see how much his words hurt. You're right about one thing, I said, my voice steady. Emily's happy now. That's what matters. Jake chuckled, a smug sound that made my skin crawl. Yeah, but I'm sure it stings a little, doesn't it? I mean, you and I both know that she wasn't exactly in the best place when she was with you. I didn't know why I was still standing there talking to him. Maybe it was the need for closure, or maybe I was just trying to prove something to myself. Either way, I wasn't going to back down. You don't know anything about what was going on between Emily and me? I said, my voice colder now. So why don't you stick to what you know? Jake's smile faltered for a moment, but he quickly recovered. Right, you're right. Oh, I don't know what it was like. Oh, but I know what it's like to have someone pick you over the other guy. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. He already knew what he'd done. He already knew the damage he'd caused. I turned to leave, but Jake called after me. Hey, James, don't be like that. I'm just messing with you. No hard feelings, right? No hard feelings. The words echoed in my mind, and I fought the urge to turn around and knock that smug look off his face. But I didn't. Instead, I walked away. I was done. I was done letting him or anyone else control how I felt. I'd been angry for too long, had held on to this bitterness for too long. I didn't need to get revenge. I didn't need to prove anything. I was going to move forward for myself, not for Emily, not for Jake, for me. As I stepped into the elevator, I took a deep breath, letting the moment sink in. Maybe I wasn't ready to forgive Emily, but I was finally ready to stop letting her or him affect me. The doors closed, and I looked at my reflection in the mirror. I had made it through the confrontation. I had made it through without losing control. That was something. I stood by the window in my Boston apartment, staring out at the skyline, the city lights reflecting the mess inside my mind. The past few weeks had been a blur. New York, the work assignment. Jake, I thought leaving LA would somehow make everything easier, but here I was, stuck with the same questions, the same unresolved pain. I needed to talk to someone. I needed to hear another perspective. So I called John Matthews. John was an old friend. We'd been close back in college, but life had pulled us in different directions. He'd reached out a couple of months ago, saying he was in Boston for work. Hadn't had the energy to meet up until now. Maybe this was the universe giving me a chance to clear my head. He arrived in the evening, knocking on my door like nothing had changed. "Still in the same old place, huh?" John grinned, stepping inside. He hadn't changed much, still wearing that cocky smile I remembered from college. But there was something different in his eyes. Maybe I wasn't the only one carrying some weight. "You're late," I said, offering him a beer. John chuckled, taking the bottle from my hand. "Guess I'll make it up to you with some wisdom." I laughed, though it was hollow. "I don't know if I'm ready for wisdom right now, man." John plopped down on the couch, taking a swig of his beer, then maybe some distractions. "But you've got to let me in first. What's going on?" I hesitated, the words tangled in my throat. But I had to say something. "It's Emily. It's been months, and I still can't shake it. Can't stop thinking about her, about what she did to me. I've been angry for so long, and I don't know what to do with it." John raised an eyebrow. "So you're still stuck on that?" I nodded, swallowing hard. "Yeah, it feels like everything I've done since has been because of that anger. I'm not just mad at her anymore, though. I'm mad at myself, too. For letting it get this far?" John leaned back, his eyes narrowing as if he was calculating something. "You know, I've been there. Maybe not exactly like you, but I've been stuck on someone who burned me. And for the longest time, I thought getting revenge would be the only thing that'd give me peace." "Did it?" I asked, my voice tinged with bitterness. He shook his head. "It felt good for a moment, sure, but it didn't bring back what I lost. All it did was make me as cold as the person I was trying to punish." I sat down next to him, the weight of his words sinking in. "I don't want to be like that. I don't want to keep hurting myself over something that's not even mine to fix anymore. But every time I think about forgiving her, I feel like I'm giving up. It's like I'm letting her off the hook for what she did." John took another drink, staring at the bottle in his hand. "I get it, man. I really do. But you've got to ask yourself, what are you really holding on to? The anger, the revenge. It's not going to change anything. It's not going to bring her back, and it's not going to fix you. You've got to choose what kind of man you want to be." His words hit harder than I expected. My throat tightened, and I couldn't find the words to respond at first. But the truth in his voice, the raw honesty, stirred something inside me. Maybe I had been holding on to the anger because it felt like the only thing I had left. Maybe I was scared of letting go. So what should I do? I asked quietly, the question lingering between us. "Let go," he said simply. "Let go of the anger. Let go of the need for revenge. You'll never get back what you lost with her, but that doesn't mean you have to lose yourself in the process. You're better than that. You deserve better." I closed my eyes, trying to digest what he said. It wasn't easy. The anger had become a part of me, like a scar that I thought I needed to wear to prove how much I'd been hurt. But maybe he was right. Maybe I didn't need to wear it anymore. "Forgiveness is hard," I muttered. "Feels like giving up, like admitting she won." John smiled, his expression softening. "Forgiving her isn't about her. It's about you. It's about freeing yourself from her grip. You can't move forward if you're still living in the past." His words hung in the air, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. I had been holding on to the past for so long, convinced that if I didn't, I'd lose everything. But maybe holding on was the thing that was actually keeping me stuck. I looked over at John, feeling a shift inside me, something breaking free. "I think I get it," I said. "I can't keep living like this. I've got to let go." John clapped me on the back. "That's the spirit. You're going to be fine, man. You just need to make the decision to stop dragging the past around." I stood up, feeling lighter. "Thanks, John. Seriously, I needed that." "Anytime, man," he said, standing up too. "Now, let's go grab some food. You've got a lot of living to do." And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I might actually be ready to start living again. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the phone in my hand. The screen was still showing Emily's last message. "We need to talk, James." My thumb hovered over the reply button, but I couldn't bring myself to type anything. What was there left to say? What was the point? I leaned back against the headboard, closing my eyes. The anger, the pain, it all swirled inside me, churning like a storm. She had hurt me, betrayed me in ways I still couldn't fully process, and here she was, reaching out again. For what? To apologize? To explain herself? Or was this just another attempt to control me, to pull me back into her chaos? I was still weighing my options when I heard Liam's footsteps outside my door. "Dad." I looked up, and there he was, standing in the doorway with his wide, innocent eyes. His face held a mix of curiosity and concern. He wasn't a kid anymore, but there were moments when he still looked so much like the boy I used to know, the one who'd relied on me for everything, the one who'd trusted me. "Yeah, buddy," I said, trying to sound casual, but I could hear the tension in my own voice. Liam stepped into the room, holding something in his hand. It was a picture, one I hadn't seen in years. Emily, me, and him, all smiling at some family barbecue. We looked happy, whole. He handed it to me. "I found this while cleaning my room." I took the photo, staring at it for a moment. The weight of it hit me like a freight train.
Oh.
Those were the days before everything went wrong. Before she left. Before I was forced to pick up the pieces of my shattered heart. "Dad," Liam said, his voice soft but steady. "Why do you still hold on to the bad stuff?" His words felt like a punch to the gut. I looked at him, unsure if he even understood the full extent of what had happened between Emily and me. He was too young to know the details, but maybe he didn't need to. Maybe all he needed was to see me find peace. "Because she hurt me, Liam," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "She left. She betrayed me. And I can't just forget that." Liam sat down next to me on the bed, his brow furrowed as he thought. "I get that, Dad. But if you're always mad, aren't you letting her control you?" His words knocked the wind out of me. He was right, of course. I had been letting my anger control me for so long. Every day, every thought was consumed by it. I'd let it fester and grow, feeding on the bitterness, on the memories. But Liam had just called me out in the most innocent way possible. "Liam, I trailed off, unsure of how to explain what I'd been feeling. How do you explain the weight of betrayal to a kid? How do you make him understand why it was so hard to let go? I don't know how to move on from this." "You don't have to forget," Liam said softly, "but you can't keep holding on to it either. Maybe you need to talk to her, not to yell, or whatever you're thinking, but just to get some answers. And maybe you can let go of the hurt." I felt a lump form in my throat. It was like Liam had taken everything I'd been feeling and laid it bare. He didn't have the answers, but he had the perspective that I had lost. "Is that what you want?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Liam nodded. "Yeah. I just want you to be happy, Dad. Not angry all the time." His words hit me harder than anything I'd heard in months. I looked down at the photo again, at the family we used to be. I wanted that. I wanted peace. Not just for me, but for Liam too. He deserved to see his father move on, to see me heal. I stood up suddenly, the weight of the decision settling in my chest. "I'm going to talk to her, Liam. Not to get revenge, not to hurt her, but to get closure. For me, for us." Liam smiled, his face lighting up with relief. "I think that's a good idea, Dad." I squeezed his shoulder, feeling a sense of clarity I hadn't felt in so long. The anger, the need for revenge, wasn't going to bring me peace. But forgiveness, that could. Forgiveness wasn't about excusing what she had done. It was about releasing the grip it had on me. It was about finally healing. As I made my way to the door, I took a deep breath. I wasn't sure what would happen when I saw Emily again. I didn't know if she'd apologize, or if we'd end up back at square one. But I knew one thing: I couldn't keep letting the past control me. It was time to take back my life. "Thanks, Liam," I said, turning back to him with a small smile. "You've helped me more than you know," Liam grinned. "Anytime, Dad." And for the first time in a long while, I felt like I was ready to take the next step. The decision had been made. Now it was time to face her, to finally find the closure I needed. The moment I walked into the cafe, I could feel the weight of it all pressing down on me. It was a small place in Chicago, tucked away between two tall buildings, with soft jazz playing in the background. A place that should have been warm and inviting, but it felt cold to me. I spotted her right away, Emily. She was sitting by the window, just like I'd imagined. She hadn't changed much. Same confident posture, same casual grace. But there was something different in the way she held herself today. It wasn't the prideful confidence I remembered. There was hesitation in her eyes, regret. I stood there for a moment, just watching her, feeling the anger, the pain, and everything in between. And then, without thinking too much about it, I walked over to the table. "James," Emily said, her voice faltering as she looked up at me. She stood up, but I didn't return the gesture. "Sit down," I said, my tone sharp. I wasn't here for pleasantries. I wasn't here for a reunion. I was here for answers. She hesitated before sitting back down, her fingers lightly tracing the rim of her coffee cup. The silence between us was heavy, thick with everything we hadn't said over the past months. It was suffocating, but I couldn't seem to find the right words to break it. Finally, she spoke. "I'm sorry, James, for everything, for the way I left you, for how I hurt you." Her words landed like a stone in the pit of my stomach. I wanted to say anything, but the apology felt so hollow. It was like she was saying the right words because she thought she had to, not because she truly understood the damage she'd caused. "I don't need your apology, Emily," I said, my voice cold. "What good is it now?" She winced at my words, but she didn't pull away. Instead, she seemed to shrink, as if the weight of my anger was finally hitting her. "I know I can't change what I did. I just... I wanted you to know that I regret it. I regret everything." I leaned forward, my eyes never leaving hers. "You regret it? You regret what exactly? You regret leaving me? Or do you regret the way you broke me into pieces, making me feel like I wasn't worth a second chance?" Her eyes welled up, and for the first time since I'd walked in, I saw something real. She was struggling with the guilt. I could see it in her face. But it didn't change anything. "I was selfish," she whispered. "I was so focused on myself, on what I wanted, that I didn't think about how it would hurt you. I was so afraid of being alone that I didn't even stop to consider the pain I was causing you." I swallowed, pushing down the wave of emotion threatening to break through. I wanted to shout at her, to tell her everything I'd been holding in for months. But I didn't. Because for the first time in a long time, I didn't need to. I took a deep breath and sat back in my chair. "You've made your choices, Emily. You made your bed, and you're lying in it now. I can't change what happened, and neither can you." She wiped her eyes, looking at me with a mixture of regret and something else. Something I couldn't quite place. "I didn't mean for things to turn out like this. I thought I was doing what was best for me at the time, but I see now that I hurt you in ways I can never undo." The words hit harder than I expected. Maybe it was the sincerity in her voice. Or maybe it was the fact that deep down I had hoped no. Needed to hear something like that. But hearing it now, it wasn't enough. "Don't," I said, my voice firm, trying to push the anger back down. "I don't want your regret. It doesn't fix anything." Emily fell silent, her gaze dropping to the table. The weight of everything that had passed between us hung in the air, thick and painful. I felt it too, the ache in my chest. But something was different this time. The anger wasn't suffocating me like it had before. I had been so consumed by it, by the desire for revenge, for justice. But in this moment, I realized something. Revenge wasn't going to heal me. It wasn't going to give me peace. I didn't need to hold on to this bitterness. I didn't need to let her power over me define me anymore. I looked at her one last time, my heart heavy but steady. "I'm done being angry, Emily," I said quietly. "I've held on to this pain long enough, and I'm letting it go." Her eyes widened, and she opened her mouth to say something, but I stopped her. "I'm not doing this for you," I added, my voice steady. "I'm doing it for me, for my peace." For the first time in months, I felt a shift inside me. I didn't need her approval, her apology, or her regret. I didn't need her at all. I was finally free. Emily sat there, staring at me, her face unreadable. She didn't speak for a long time, and I didn't either. But in that silence, I realized that the confrontation wasn't about her. It was about me. I had finally let go. I stood up slowly, feeling a sense of relief wash over me. "Goodbye, Emily." She didn't try to stop me. And as I walked out of the cafe, I felt lighter. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe. The morning sunlight poured through the blinds, casting long shadows across the floor. I was awake earlier than usual, the stillness of the apartment oddly comforting. It had been a few weeks since I'd left Chicago, since I'd confronted Emily, and since I'd made the decision to move on. I still had moments where I caught myself thinking about her, but they were fewer now. I was starting to see the world without the filter of my past pain. Slowly, painfully, I was learning to forgive not just Emily, but myself. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. I stood up and made my way to the kitchen, the familiar hum of the city filtering through the window. Alessandra was different. The air felt lighter here, not just because of the space, but because for the first time in a long time, I was beginning to feel like myself again. Liam walked in, still rubbing sleep from his eyes. He hadn't been with me full time until recently, but seeing him every morning, seeing him grow, felt like the anchor I needed. "Morning, Dad," he said, his voice still sleepy but warm. "Morning, champ," I replied, smiling. I poured him a glass of juice, and he slumped into the chair at the kitchen table. "How's work?" he asked, his eyes on the paper in front of him, but I could see the subtle curiosity in his expression. "It's good," I said, trying to keep my voice light. "Busy but good. How about you? How's school?" He shrugged. "It's okay, but I wanted to ask you something." "Right." I paused, setting the glass down in front of him. "What's up?" He looked up at me, his expression hesitant. "I've been thinking you're different. Like, I don't know, happier maybe." His words hit me like a punch in the chest. I wasn't used to being called out like that. "I feel better," I said quietly, sitting across from him. "I'm trying to be. For you, for me." Liam's eyes softened. "I noticed you don't look angry all the time anymore, and I don't know, you just seem more okay." I couldn't help but laugh, though there was a tightness in my chest. "I guess that's good, huh?" He smiled and nodded.
Why?
"Yeah, I'm proud of you, Dad." I wasn't sure what to say. In that moment, Liam wasn't just my son. He wasn't just a kid I had to take care of. He was someone who was starting to see me for who I was, not just as a father, but as a man who was finally figuring things out, and that meant more to me than anything. "You're a good kid," I said, feeling a lump form in my throat. "I'm proud of you too." He looked down at his juice, suddenly quiet. I knew he wasn't a kid anymore, even though he still had that innocence about him. "Dad, do you think people can really change?" "I mean, I know you have, and I can see it. But do you think, like, other people can too?" I wasn't expecting that question. I leaned back in my chair, considering my words carefully. "I think anyone can change if they really want to," I said. "But it's not easy. It takes a lot of work, a lot of figuring yourself out." Liam's eyes met mine, and for a moment I saw a flicker of understanding. He was starting to get at the journey of growth, of transformation. "I think I'm starting to figure that out too," he said quietly. I raised an eyebrow. "Yeah, you mean what?" He shrugged, looking away for a moment. "Just life. How you have to work for things. How you can't just expect everything to be perfect all the time." "Yeah," I said softly, leaning forward. "That's the truth, kiddo. It's not about things being perfect. It's about doing your best no matter what." Liam nodded, and for a moment we just sat there in silence. It wasn't awkward, though. It felt right. Like we were two people, not just father and son, but individuals who had started to understand each other in a way we hadn't before. As the days went on, I found myself spending more time with Liam. We took weekend trips, had dinner together most nights, and talked more. It was strange at first, feeling this sense of normalcy. But as I watched him grow, I realized that I was growing too. One evening, after dinner, Liam was cleaning up the dishes when he paused and looked over at me. "You know, I think I've got it figured out," he said, his voice steady. "Got what figured out?" I asked, half joking. "Me," he said, smiling. "What I want to do with my life, what I want to be." I stopped what I was doing and turned to him. "What is it?" "I don't know yet, but I know I want to be someone I can be proud of. Like you." The words hit me harder than I expected. I never realized how much my actions, my changes, had affected him. "I'm glad you think that," I said quietly, my voice rough with emotion. "But just know, you don't have to be me. You just need to be yourself." Liam grinned. "Yeah, I know, but it helps when I've got a role model like you." And in that moment, I realized just how much I had changed, not just for me, but for him too. I wasn't just a man recovering from betrayal and loss. I was someone who had found his purpose again, someone who could offer Liam not just guidance, but hope. I didn't need Emily's approval anymore, didn't need anyone's. I was learning to stand on my own, to rebuild myself from the ground up. And for the first time in a long time, I believed I could do it. I watched from a distance, but this time, I wasn't the one caught in the storm. It was Emily. I'd always been in the center of the chaos, the one struggling to pick up the pieces of my broken heart. But now I was watching her unravel, piece by piece, from a safe distance. Yes. And for the first time I felt no pity, no anger, just ... detachment. It had been a few weeks since I'd last seen her, but the ripples of her actions continued to spread. She had tried to reach out, of course. Text messages, calls, an email. That was more of an apology than anything else. I had ignored them all. The Emily I knew, the one who had shattered everything between us, was no longer someone I cared about, at least not in the way I once did. I sat in my apartment one night, the quiet hum of the city outside the window, when my phone buzzed. Her name flashed on the screen, and for a moment I hesitated. But then I remembered how far I'd come, how much I'd let go. I swiped it away without a second thought. "James, I know you're there," her voice came through when I picked up, but I immediately cut her off.
I am already...
"I'm not doing this. Not anymore," I said, my voice steady but firm. I wasn't angry anymore. I didn't need to be. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I could almost hear her, the way her breath hitched as she searched for the right words. "Please, just hear me out," she begged. "I made a mistake, James. A huge mistake, but I want to fix things. I don't want to lose you." The words felt hollow. I could tell she was sincere, but sincerity didn't fix what she had done. And it didn't change what I'd become in the process. "You already lost me," I said. "You don't get to just come back and pretend it didn't happen. You made your choices, Emily, and I'm done living in the past. I've moved on." I heard her choke on a sob, but I didn't care anymore. The emotional hold she had on me was gone, and all that remained was a faint memory of someone I thought I could trust. But I couldn't keep holding on to the person she was, or the one I thought she would be. That was over. I hung up without another word, and as I put the phone down, I felt ... nothing. No guilt, no second thoughts, just peace. Days passed, and I kept watching. I saw her name pop up in the news, nothing too shocking, but enough to catch my attention. Her company had suffered a major blow, losing a contract she had fought for, and suddenly, the cracks in her perfect life were visible to everyone. It wasn't just work, it was everything. I heard from mutual friends about how she had tried to regain control of the life she had once had, but it was slipping through her fingers. Her relationships were strained. People didn't trust her anymore. The lies, the mistakes, all of it had come back to haunt her. For the first time, I found myself almost indifferent. This wasn't the revenge I thought I wanted. I didn't feel satisfied seeing her struggle. But I couldn't deny that karma was taking its toll. One evening, Sophie called me. "Hey, did you hear about Emily?" I sighed, rubbing my temples. "Yeah, it's everywhere. She's really falling apart, James. I don't think she saw it coming. Everything's unraveling." I leaned back in my chair, staring out at the city below. "No, but it's not my problem anymore." Sophie's voice softened. "I think you've let go, huh?" I nodded, though she couldn't see me. "Yeah, I don't need to be part of her mess anymore. I've got my own life to live." For the first time in what felt like forever, I truly believed it. I wasn't the same person who had spent sleepless nights obsessing over Emily and her betrayal. I wasn't the same guy who had wanted revenge. The truth was, watching her fall apart didn't bring me any satisfaction. It didn't fix the pain she'd caused me. It didn't change the past. But it did show me something important. I wasn't stuck in the past anymore. I had let go, and that was enough. As the days turned into weeks, I noticed something else. I wasn't thinking about her anymore. My life wasn't revolving around Emily or the wreckage she left behind. It was my life now. It was mine to shape, and I was finally free from the weight of her presence. Checked my phone one last time, seeing that Emily had left another message. I didn't listen to it. I didn't need to. I was done. I hadn't expected closure to feel like this, so simple, almost too easy. For months, I had imagined that it would come with a dramatic confrontation, with Emily apologizing in tears, or me finally unleashing every ounce of anger I'd kept buried. But it didn't happen that way. No grand gestures, no fireworks. It's just a quiet, calm realization that everything I had been searching for was already within me. It was a Saturday afternoon, the sun streaming through the windows of the apartment. Liam was sitting on the couch, eyes glued to his video game, but I could tell he wasn't completely lost in it. He'd been different recently, more aware of things around him, more ... Grown up, I guess. We hadn't talked much about the past lately, but there was something unspoken between us. He'd been giving me space, letting me figure things out, but I could tell he was waiting for me to finally get it all together. And somehow, I had. The phone buzzed on the table beside me. I glanced down, seeing Emily's name on the screen. My stomach turned. I knew what it would be. Another message, probably full of guilt and regret. Wasn't the first time she had tried to reach out. But each time I ignored her, each time I left her words unanswered, I felt the weight of the past lift just a little more. I didn't reach for the phone. I didn't need to. You still think about her, don't you? Liam's voice broke through my thoughts. I turned to him, surprised by the suddenness of his question. What do you mean? Liam paused the game and looked at me. Emily, you're always checking your phone when she texts. It's like you're waiting for something to change, but I don't think it's going to. I stared at him for a moment, his eyes more knowing than I'd expected. I was right, of course. I had been waiting for closure, for some kind of answer that would make everything okay again. But I'd already had my closure. It wasn't in the texts or apologies she was offering, it was in the way I had learned to forgive. It was in the way I had learned to let go. You're right, I said, a small smile tugging at the corner of my lips. I don't need to answer her anymore. Liam raised an eyebrow as if he wasn't sure if I was joking. You sure about that? Yeah, I said, finally picking up the phone. I hovered over the message, my finger hovering over the screen. But then I deleted it. No more waiting. No more looking back. Liam smiled, satisfied. You're different, Dad. I can see it. I nodded, feeling a weight lift from my chest. I am. The phone buzzed again, but this time, I didn't even glance at it. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city beyond. I felt a calmness in my chest, a peace I hadn't realized I had been missing. I had spent so long wondering how to fix what Emily had broken, but now I saw the truth. I didn't need her to fix anything. I didn't need her apology or her regret. I just needed to keep moving forward. Dad, Liam said, standing beside me now, his voice quieter. Do you think, I don't know. You'll ever forgive her? I didn't have to think about the answer. I have, I said, the words coming easier than I thought. I forgave her a long time ago, but I'm not going to let that stop me from living my life. Liam looked up at me, a small but genuine smile on his face. I'm proud of you, Dad. For a moment I didn't know what to say. My chest tightened, but it wasn't with grief anymore. It was with pride. For the first time in so long, I felt proud of myself. I'm proud of you too, I said, looking down at him. You've helped me get here. You're growing up to be a good man. Liam shrugged, but I could tell it meant something to him. I'm just trying to be like you. It was then that I realized he had been watching me, not just as a father, but as a person. The man I had become was someone he could look up to, someone he could rely on. And that, more than anything, was my victory. The phone buzzed again, this time a message from Emily. I'm sorry, James. I wish I had done better by you. Hope you can find peace. I stared at the screen for a moment, then placed the phone down. It was the same message I had gotten before: regret, apology, and nothing more. I didn't need to respond to it. The apology wasn't for me anymore. It was for her. I turned to Liam, smiling. I'm done with all of that. I'm finally moving on. Liam nodded. Good. We've got our own lives to live now, right? Yeah, I said. We do. And with that, I realized that Emily's part of my story was over. I didn't need her to complete me anymore. I didn't need her to apologize or explain herself. The past was in the past, and the future was mine. We sat there side by side, watching the city as the sun dipped below the horizon. The weight of the years, the pain, the heartbreak, it had all started to fade. And as I looked over at Liam, I realized that I was exactly where I needed to be.